That's what he's doing? Yes. I said nothing more but continued looking at the picture while Dad went back to work. After a bit, it occurred to me to see if I could gaze at God too. To do this, I would do just what the monk was doing. Since the window in Gert's room, her older sister, was the only one low enough for me to lean against, I went to her room, opened the window, leaned back against the frame, and assumed the same pose as the monk in the picture. I stood there a while just looking over the treetops, over the tops of the trees, at the sky and the clouds. After a bit, I said to myself, "The monk is right. I see God too." Incidentally, she said that never left her. Somehow I knew God was what I did not visibly see in nature. From then on, to see God, I only had to look out the window, or if I was already outside, just stand quietly for a while and look, gaze, as Dad put it. Had I not first seen God with in the thing above the waves at the beach, at the ocean, I don't know that by merely gazing at nature I would have known I was seeing him at all. It seems one first has to see God before they can contemplate God. Otherwise, they don't really know what they're looking at. This is age 3. Her big brother was always lying to her, and after she had seen God, he got her all excited by saying, Neptune is going to be coming out of the sea at the pier at Venice Beach. And Bernadette asks, "Who's Neptune?" And Lee, her older brother, answered, "He's God of the sea." I jumped out of my seat. I knew God was in the sea. I just knew it. I was sure of it. So he promised to take her next Saturday to see this event. I counted the days to the following Saturday. The anticipation of seeing God again could not have been higher, and Lee, of course, made the most of this. Every day he reminded me to prepare myself for the great day of vision and revelation, because he said, "We are going to be very privileged people." I could hardly sleep at night, waiting for the great day to arrive. When they got there, she waited, and eventually this bum covered in seaweed comes climbing up the steps out of the water from underneath the pier, and she starts shouting, "That's not God! That's not God!" And she was furious, and to get revenge, she dashed away through a sea of legs because she knew that if she got lost, Lee would get in big trouble. Perhaps the only good thing to come from this horrible incident was my never being tempted to regard God as anything that could be seen with the eyes, or for that matter, heard with the ears, or touched with the hands. So she's learning the hard way that God is beyond the senses. From then on, I developed the habit of checking up on my mind to make sure that nothing got stuck in it. Everyone, especially her older brother Lee, was telling her stuff, and he was always joking, he was always lying. But if I was not a believer, I was also not a disbeliever. Between the two lies the tester, someone who has to find out the truth for themselves, and this was me. So she got into lots of arguments with her mother because her mother was always saying, "Now, dear, you have to be a good girl." And at one point she said, what do you want me to be, Shirley Temple? So she was going back and forth for years, saying, "I am just myself." And then in exasperation, her mother pointed her finger and said, poked me in the chest and said emphatically, "You will never find your true self until you find God." These her exact words. And with that, she turned and went back to her work. Sorry, I don't know why I get a dry throat every time I do one of these silly videos that no one ever watches. She goes to Catholic school, and she starts reading the catechism, and she sees the question, "Where is God?" And the answer is, God is everywhere. Indeed, the phrase God is everywhere perfectly expressed what the monk and I saw and had known all along. To contemplate is just that, to see God everywhere. Of myself, I could never have thought of the word everywhere, but that was the perfect word. You do not see God here or there, but everywhere. The rest of the day I waited impatiently for school to get out so I could stand on the empty hillside next to school and just look everywhere, see God. And so I did. For a long time I stood alone on the hill, just looking, gazing at God. I could hardly contain my happiness. I have about 30 quotes, I think, today. Here's the 14th. Hope you're enjoying them. Here's an experience she describes the day she was born. I hurried downstairs and was about to go out the front door when Mom told me to put on a sweater. So I ran to the back door, grabbed my sweater off its hook, and bounded down the back stairs. I turned left to run through the side garden and around to the front, when, a few steps beyond the stairs, suddenly, from somewhere within myself, I felt a powerful rush, like the swift blowing up of a balloon. I seemed to be expanding in all directions. I stopped, looked at my arms and legs to see if I was actually growing, yet I saw nothing unusual. Still, this powerful air, or whatever it was, kept expanding in all directions. For a moment I was seized with fear and thought to myself, I'm gonna bust. While I had no idea what would happen then, I suspected I might not be around to find out. Short of this happening, however, the expansion suddenly stopped. I waited in suspense when across my mind came the words, "You're too big for yourself." After which the air diffused into a wild joy. Wild because it was beyond me, uncontainable, not mine. It was as if this air had burst into laughter. She called this experience the day I was born because it was so pivotal to everything that followed. Indeed, the experience opened up a whole new dimension in myself. I had always been aware of my own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and energies, yet there was nothing mysterious or unknown about these. What I experienced this day, however, was totally different, a complete mystery. Finding out its true nature would become the search of my life, a search that began on that day. So she went and asked her friends, all of whom were boys older than her. She was always in charge of playing cops and robbers, and she was always bossing around the boys. She said, "Have you ever felt anything like this?" And they just stared at her, gawking, gaping with open mouths. And she didn't want to stand out. I figured that anything one person could experience, others could too. I did not like the idea of being the only one, a rare bird, an oddity. All I wanted was just to be one of the bunch. Fortunately, that was not permitted. She was sassy. She was cheeky. She was often getting sent to her room for blurting out inappropriate things at the dinner table while guests were there or whatever. So one time she got sent to her room and this happened. She was feeling gloomy, glum. After a few minutes, however, from within myself came a strong leap, a burst of what could only be called laughter. Felt something like a belly laugh. Although I did not laugh, there was nothing funny. Yet it instantly swept away the gloom and problems as if they counted for nothing, as if they were even humorous. Not only was the message clear and certain, it, the mysterious power, was the only thing that mattered in my life. Everything else didn't matter, wasn't worth the slightest concern. That's what it wanted me to know, to learn, to keep in mind. Compared to itself, everything else in life was merely external and irrelevant. So she has this now a strong interior power which takes on a life of its own. Perhaps what was most important about this experience was it